No role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, I want to talk about a conversation I had with a former coworker of mine who we remain friends to this day. This person is a multi-unit manager or a district manager for a fairly large retail organization, like a specialty retailer. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of bemoaning to me that their boss just increased the number of stores that they are responsible for. So they eliminated about half the roles of this position in the organization, and it kind of doubled up the store count for these people. Mm-hmm. And so he went from having 6 stores to having 11 stores. And he and I were talking about it, and he was talking about what he's supposed to do. And the thing he said to me that kind of threw me off a little bit was, he said, how am I supposed to get to all these stores in a week? Some of them are far apart. And that's when I thought, okay, this is something we have to talk about on Hacking Your Leadership, because it really comes down to obviously what the role of the leader is. And every organization is different. You know, different organizations have different kind of responsibilities that the leader has. But I'm wondering, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you were being given too much to do as a leader, and you kind of had to take stock about what really was your job and what wasn't your job?
Yeah, a few times, and kind of in that same context where the amount of work or responsibility, and I think like the amount of people had grown, quite a lot larger than I thought. So
Sure.
What I think about was when I was first a supervisor, and I think I had a team of between like 8 and 10 people, with a mixture of maybe, 3 or 4 of them were full-time and then the others were part-time. And so you would see certain people more often than others. But I remember going from that type of a role to a manager role, to where now, if you're a sales manager, you kind of have a team of maybe 35, 40, or 50 people.
Right.
And so, I remember specifically where I thought, the relationships that I could hold with, 8 to 11 people versus now the relationships I could hold with a lot more people was very difficult. And the conversations, where I struggled with was feeling that a big part of my job was to be able to connect with, people on an individual basis, really understand who they were, what motivated them, what demotivated them, all the types of things that, you could then leverage in the relationship to get work done. Well, now that I had, 40, 50 people, similar to this person's question, not enough hours in the day where I would be able to connect with people like that, and then also be able to influence the business in a positive way. So that would be the time in my career that I think most aligns with the question.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to burn out. Like there's no way to get it done unless you are truly if you're doubling up the people. Technically, that means if you want the same relationship, that means doubling up the amount of hours you spend working. And so, yeah, obviously that's not the case. That's not what the organization is expecting my friend to do, is to now visit 2 stores a day instead of just 1 store a day. Clearly, the implication there is that the organization thinks that these district managers are trying to do too much of what they aren't supposed to be doing, mm-hmm. to pick up the slack for the store leaders who should be doing a better job running their stores. And so the idea that a district manager is now responsible for running all of their stores, that to me seems virtually impossible. Whereas if the role of the district manager is to develop their general managers and then trust that those general managers are going to run their stores, mm-hmm. Give them the tools they need, help them facilitate things if they need help, if they need a resource. But then, quite honestly, if they're not able to do it, get rid of them. I think there are a lot of leaders out there who they enable poor performers to remain in the role because they have started doing the job of their people as opposed to holding their people accountable to do their job.
Yeah, absolutely. I can think to when I first became a general manager, And, there was always this thing that mentors had warned me about and talked to me about, which is like not being a general manager, but being a super AM or a super assistant manager, which basically means that you're so still continuing to do the work that you did as assistant manager, which is typically like driving the business, having some supervisors that you can work with from a development standpoint. But the vast majority of your time was in the business, engaging with employees, engaging with customers, making sure that the operational elements of the position is running, and that the business is continuing to grow. And then you become a GM, and then what what they were saying was you have to be careful of is that you just continue that level of work, and you believe that getting the results, continuing the result that you've gotten is more of a priority than developing the leaders that now report to you. And that for me was kind of it was difficult to begin with, but I was really thinking a lot about that as I got into the role. So what I realized was I had to go and talk to my team and say, hey, I'm really comfortable doing your job. Like I've done your job for a long time in a lot of different stores with a lot of different teams, and it's just natural for me. And like my preference is to go out there and do what you need to do. And I want to make sure that I have time to do some of that work because I believe that will keep me aligned with what's going on. I'll be able to, understand maybe how you see the work because of the dynamics that are shifting or strategies that are happening. But I need you to tell me if I'm overstepping. I need you to tell me if I'm doing your job too often. And the only way that I can do that is for you to be honest with me as a new general manager. And then I also need to look at my time on a weekly basis and how much time am I doing the job that somebody else can do and that they should be doing, and then how much time has been shifted to the development of now my managers that I work with on a daily basis. And if I'm not seeing a big enough shift, then I'm clearly spending my time in the wrong place.
Right. And I think a lot of this goes to motivation too. So the example you just gave, which I like, assumes that the people who report to you are competent employees and they want to be able to do their role independently and know that you're there as a resource, but that you're not micromanaging or like you said, overstepping. But the other potential option is you have people who are happy to let you do their job because it means they don't have to do it. If you decide to narrow your focus into the role of a leader, which is developing people. And I don't want to say that's 100% of the time. The further you are away from the customer, the more strategic your role is. The closer you are to the customer, the more tactical your role is. That's the nature of every business. So unless you are in the C-suite of your organization, it is likely that part of your role has some tactical tasks associated with it, and it's not all strategic. So just because you could go from a salesperson to a general manager, it doesn't mean you're never going to be doing tactical in the moment, running things the way that your salespeople run them. It just means it should be a whole lot less of your role. And the majority of your role should be spent developing the people underneath you. And because if you don't do that, then whatever you're doing, you're going to have to continue doing forever. If the goal is to make it so your business can run seamlessly without you, which should be the goal of every leader. The goal of every leader should be to make it so if you have to not be there, the business doesn't fall apart. If it does, then that kind of needed is not the right needed you want to be. You want to be needed in that people look to you as a support, that people look to you for the development, that people look to you to as a resource for information if it's solicited. But if the business starts falling apart or floundering in your temporary absence, then that means you haven't done the job that a leader is supposed to do, which is getting your own people ready to run it in your absence. And so I think if you can't do that, if you can't make that happen, you're spending too much time doing your people's jobs.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. That's what I was thinking was in my career, some of the ways that I know that my leadership is having an impact on those that I lead is I've had, employees and people come up to me and say things like, hey, I just want to let you know that I appreciate the culture and the environment that we have, and that I appreciate your leadership because the store and the team runs the same whether you're here or not.
Right.
And I think that's a great point to call out, because I think in the conversation that you were having, if your presence is required to have a positive impact on the business, then clearly either you have the wrong people or you've spent not the right amount of time developing those people to be able to have a positive impact on the business, because that just means that your presence is the accountability, or the motivation required for people to do their job. And that means that you have not transferred, the ownership of the business or the behaviors to the leaders that are running that actual business. So I think it's a great point. I could see, having gone through, many reorganizations with other companies, having friends that work at other companies that continue to go through different types of reorgs and whatnot. This is what happens. Is sometimes it is proactive and done in a way to say we need to build some space here. I need my multi-unit leaders to be more, inspirational and more focused on development. And so I'm going to force that action by giving them so many stores that they have to figure this out. Or in some organizations, it's simply a cost-cutting system. It's just that, we've got to figure out where we can trim. And the belief is that, you can do more with less, and we're going to eliminate these jobs. But I think either way, that's really the only way to come out of this on the right side and with positive momentum, is you have to be in a space where you are spending more of your time making sure that your leaders can lead at a local level and have positive influence on the business, and not be about your presence all the time there.
Right. When I see this happen, when I see this kind of this tendency to rear its ugly head, is when there's a change in the business for the negative and people become reactive. And the leaders I know who do this the right way, when a change in the business causes a downswing in any of the performance metrics that a leader is kind of judged on, the reaction is, okay, what are the behaviors that my people are and are not doing that need to change? And how do I methodically go through and ensure that those behaviors are happening? That's the correct way. The reactive way is, oh my gosh, my people aren't doing this, I need to do this myself. And sometimes it comes from the leader themselves. Sometimes it's prescribed by the organization as a reactive way to say, clearly nobody can do this besides you as the leader, so we need you to do it. It's the old, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Well, yeah, if you're at the point where you're having to say that to yourself, that if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself, clearly it means that the people you have hired or the people you have allowed to remain in position aren't able to get the job done. So then why are they there? Why are they there if they can't get the job done? And so the correct way to do this is to have these things in place before there's a downswing, so that when the reaction happens, the reaction is, all right, I already know what behaviors are lacking. I already know what I should be expecting out of my people and how to hold them accountable to that. And hopefully you have the relationship with your leader, though if you don't, you need to work on it, the relationship with your leader that says, hey, you know what? I know this is a focus right now. I know this is really important. I just want to let you know that this isn't going to be a 2-week turnaround to the numbers you're looking for. This is going to be a 1 to 2 month turnaround time. And the reason why is because I'm not doing it myself. My job is spent teaching my people how to do it, maybe reinvesting in some things that may have been lost or left by the wayside over time. But the things that we kind of have to get back to the basics on are those behaviors. And that takes some time. I have to create interactions to have those times with my people. I have to make sure that my leadership teams are doing it the right way. And then you will see a slow and gradual turnaround, but it will be a lasting turnaround because it's based on the behaviors that should be in the first place, not based on the fact that my hair is on fire and I'm running around on my floor for, the next 6 months or until we decide to change priorities.
Yeah, it's so funny as you were talking through it. I know a couple months ago I did a Thoughtful Thursday on the John Acuff book, The Do-Over.
Yes.
And you literally were verbatim defining what he calls a career bump, which is an involuntary negative situation. And what do you have to do to get through that is relationships investment, right? Like that is exactly what you were saying is when this happens in a lot of businesses, when there is that negative involuntary situation when it comes to the business itself, the business metrics, the profitability, whatever that is, it's imperative that you leverage your relationships to be able to sometimes redefine the work that you do, or redefine the the expectations of not just your role, but the roles of others. So kind of in this example, if this now multi-unit manager has twice as many stores, it's going to be extremely important for him to go back into those relationships that he currently has with the leaders that he leads and say, hey, this is the new space that we're in. This is how I'm going to be functioning. I need you to really own your business and really take this on, because I now have another 5 or 6 leaders that I have to go meet and I have to build relationships with as their new boss. And I have to be able to do that quickly and allow them to have the same type of empowerment to be able to run their businesses.
Yeah, I think this is, but again, this relies on the fact that there's a relationship there already, which means you have to be doing this work daily before there's that issue. But I like what you said there, because it has to do with transparency too. There's nothing wrong with saying to your people, hey, this is the expectation right now. You are maybe a person that can do this better than some of the other people. So I'm going to need you to kind of do this and run this and own this, because there are some other people on my team who need the extra support right now, who need me to kind of help out. And I might have to divert some of the resource of me to some of these other places temporarily, but know that I'm here as a resource for you as well. And so, when you have, it's like when you have 4 children, you can't always give all your time to all of them. Sometimes the one that has the problem at the moment, the one that's having a problem in school, or the one that's having an emotional issue, or a breakup with a significant other, whatever that is, that child gets the love for the moment. And same thing, when you have multiple people reporting to you, you have to give what is needed where you can.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 minute hack.
The 1 minute hack.
All right, for this episode's 1 minute hack, I'm going to start with a little analogy. I live in Southern California, and every year we go through wildfire season. And part of the jobs of a homeowner in a rural area is to clear away all the dead brush and trees and shrubs and everything away from the house, several feet around the entire perimeter. And if you do that, if you're good about doing that quarterly or monthly all throughout the year, then when fire season comes, your house typically isn't in danger of burning down. But then there are homeowners out there who don't do that. They don't take the time to do the prep work of clearing all the dead brush and tumbleweeds and dead trees away from their houses. And those are the homeowners that you see standing on their roofs with hoses for the entire fire season whenever a fire comes, because they're worried about a single ember burning their house down. This is the exact same thing when it comes to a person who is a leader who's trying to figure out where to spend their time. The more time that you spend on developing your people, the less time you will spend doing their job for them. If you're reacting to a bad situation financially or performance-wise in your organization or in your location or with your people, the first thing you want to do is take stock of what prep work have you put in place to make sure that your people are able to weather this storm, doing the jobs they're supposed to do. If you haven't done much, then you're probably going to be spending more time standing on top of your roof with a hose. But if you do take the time, if you spend the time every single day to develop your people, to make sure they have the skills they need, to make sure they're doing the behaviors you expect out of them, and to eliminate people who don't have the ability to do it or who refuse to do it, then you will spend significantly less time on your house with a hose, more time developing your people.
Yeah, I think it's a great 1 minute hack, and just a reminder again, especially for those that are leaders of leaders. How and where you spend your time is absolutely critical to maintaining an environment and a culture of growth. And it's also role modeling for your leaders how they should spend their time with their people. And I believe in the long run that really creates the best opportunity for everybody to be able to have personal ownership in whatever it is that they're responsible for. And usually that then creates more comfort for them in regards to the tactical elements of their job, which then gives them the confidence to be able to take some calculated risks and really figure out ways to innovate and get more efficient and more effective.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just going to say it gives them confidence too. And that's exactly right. The more confidence your people have in their ability to do their own job, the more likely they are to solve problems on their own and not to continue to look to you to put out the fires for them.
You got it. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.